What's going on, guys? It's Joe, and we are the Cup of Joe with Joe podcast. I'm excited. This is one of my first guests. I've known this guy for 4 years now. He came into my life since COVID, and via agency life, we've just come together. We have a lot of similarities in work, similarities in our faith, and we've grown together over these last few years, and it's been amazing to be able to fellowship with this guy, not only on marketing, but just everything. Michael Pacitto, tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, for sure, man. Joe, we just keep, I think we were all reminiscing a bit, just, thinking about where we all came from, right? And I think it's always interesting doing that in the entrepreneur life of thinking, yeah, man, it's like, what was happening 4 years ago? Where were we, And it's like, oh yeah, we were just like little babes, trying to figure it out. And then seeing you every single week on a different country, it's always been inspiring and all that. And hopefully this is the year, I think we're going in person. But yeah, I've been an agency owner. I've been doing marketing. I've been a photographer, video. I've been dabbling with all kinds of stuff. I'm based out of here in Canada, just the little hat to America. We're just a little on top here when we say things a little bit differently. But yeah, I've just been trying to solve problems my whole life, and that's kind of been my business journey, is just looking for problems, figuring out how to solve them, and then I make businesses when I find one that's fun to solve.
So the one problem we all ran into that wasn't foreseen, and I think changed technology crazy, was the pandemic. So before I get into the details of it, what were you doing before the pandemic, and where was your mind right when it hit?
Well, the pandemic, funny enough, man, it was I had just recovered from something way worse than the pandemic. My business was starting to fall apart. I went through a really bad mental spell. Wasn't getting things done, and I was struggling real hard. And then the pandemic hit, and everyone's like, oh man, we're going through this real hard time. Things are getting really rough and all that. I'm just like, man, this is like third year of college. The first year or two of college is actually the harder, stressful one. Yeah, it's harder, but I was kind of already ready for it. But yeah, it was definitely a time going through the COVID.
It's interesting because in this digital nomad kind of life, this is not something we were foreign to. We were kind of already on Zoom calls, already setting things up from the computer, trying to figure out how can I work from home as much as possible. And when that happened for me, I realized, well, maybe I don't want to be at home. Maybe I want to be outside, or maybe I want to be at a coffee shop. And it was an interesting transition. But what I noticed is a lot of companies then adapted to the social media, the marketing area, and having things in place to pretty much help their business grow through ways of automation, through ways of digital media. They found these ways to go. How do you feel companies can adapt to what the world is seeing, and how do you think they can apply digital marketing and marketing to their wheelhouse?
I think one of the advantages I had was I was a bit of a gamer. I was always an online person. I always loved being online. I think one thing that the pandemic did in making everyone have to go online is it really eliminated all of the barriers that made someone valuable. So a lot of business owners, we only just thought about, well, what was nearby, right? We only thought about serving people in our immediate area, and there's a good reason for that. It's good to support your local economies and all that. But when everyone had that zeitgeist change of realizing that, one, I can now get customers anywhere, and also my competition can also get customers anywhere as well. What it really did is it started to make people no longer just the big fish in a small pond. It made every single business owner that small fish in the big pond. And that forces everyone, you have to make a really important decision, is, am I going to get really serious about delivering value and having no excuses for for delivering that value, because you're not just the only one or two options in town anymore. You're competing with thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other businesses and options out there. And it's forced people to really say, where is the value that I provide? And I have to communicate it perfectly and maximize my value. Otherwise, I'm going to get swamped, or I'm going to get swept away by someone bigger, smarter, or more efficient.
Yeah, and even, I've had to struggle, but how do you feel they find that value? Where do you go in deep and say, this is a value that I bring to my audience? Because your value may not be something that you feel you value, but your audience may value it more than you do.
That's the other one. So for a lot of times, I'll use a little story, I think. When I got into photography, it was my first business that I did on my own. I was told that the market is saturated. There's more photographers. Everyone's getting a camera every single day. And the thing I realized is at that time, what made a photographer was this barrier to entry into the photography field, because cameras were complex, they were expensive, film was expensive, you had to know how to develop your film properly. How did you edit film before digital? Well, you had to actually know how to burn light onto a negative, and you wouldn't have all that feedback, right? So a lot of value that photographers had was their skill set in the tools. Now what's changed is, now think about that as a business owner. A lot of times we think our value is the tools that we're using. I'm a website. We do websites. We have hosting. Well, anyone can get hosting now. Do you want to do I give value in being able to use a really pretty template? Well, no, those templates are available to everyone. So when you're thinking about what value you provide, it's really important to not think about that you're good at what you do, that we provide a quality job, that we do excellent workmanship. Those are things that everyone can say they do and probably does. When it comes to value, it's what's actually different. What's the experience you have? What is the things that you know that only you actually know about that other people don't know? What is the way that you talk to your clients that's different than other people? I think yes, everyone, as a quick example, think about like tech support. If you've ever had to call someone for tech support, right?
Yeah.
You could have a really efficient system that you just hate to use because it's robotic, it's repetitive, it's systemized to the nth degree. It doesn't feel really good, and your customers don't have a lot of value. They'd much rather jump on a phone with somebody and talk to a human that treats them like a human being. That's where you start looking at value. No, that you hit it right, the hammer right on the nail. And knowing your value will help you bring that value to the market and then execute. A lot of times individuals are trying to please so many customers at one time. And so what do you suggest to help them be able to scale their business and grow their business once they find their value? Well, first they should talk to someone like you or me first off. They should do. But no, seriously, when it comes to it, there's a lot of things. I do a lot of automation these days. Yeah. But you really got to start by thinking about the basics. Every time there's this feeling in you that wants to get complicated and go for this big, crazy new thing, you should actually you actually have to start back at the beginning every time. You have to say where's that value that I provide? Who am I providing it for? Yeah. And that one's important because I think a lot of people skip over that. They say, oh, everyone uses my services. It's like, well, do they? Why would you need to market your business then if everyone's using your service? Obviously, that's not the case. You have to actually know who that person is and what problem exactly are you solving. Because if you're a plumber, if you're a hotel, if you're a photographer, it doesn't matter what you do. It's not the thing that you do that's necessarily the problem you solve. It's the outcome that you doing that work provides, that's the actual thing you're doing for people. And you got to start thinking through those things before you get fancy.
I feel like a lot of companies get confused with marketing, and when you say get fancy, it's like, so there's marketing and then there's sales. A lot of companies clump them together and say, oh no, the same thing, and they're two different things. And then there's that other piece of it, there's branding. You know, that's a whole nother field. They market all these fields in one. And then there's the communication and automations that connect them. You know, I think people get confused on what marketing is through these products that are being sold to them, software being sold to them. I think we're in the days where people still don't realize what service as a software is that they're being allocated to. So what is your specialty? What would you feel like your special sauce is in marketing, and how would you define that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because what makes me there, I'm one of those people that has lots of different skills. Like if I try to list off the things I could do, it's off the roots. But if I had to put it down to one thing, it's that I don't take anything for granted, and I don't assume anything, and I don't judge anything. And if I had to say that's actually this thing that makes me good at what I do, is that when someone comes to me for business help, I'm not trying to fit in a solution or anything, and I'm not going to take them even at their word, because I'm going to ask things. I'm going to ask you, like, hey, what's your value?
Yeah.
Who are the customers you do? And I'm going to listen to what you say, but I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to assume that's the right answer just because you said that was. What I do is I ask the questions that really need to be asked, and I don't stop until I get that foundational answer, because we are in the business has changed, the world has changed in a way that we don't have time to mess around. We don't have time to make mistakes as much as we used to. We don't have time to just feel our way out and, and just trial and error and just and not have to deal with those things. Oh, I'll deal with my brand later. Oh, I'm going to deal with I'm going to deal with those complicated things later. I'm going to deal with you can't do that anymore. You actually have to know that value up front, who you're serving up front, and you got to get serious about that, because all of those things you said, sales, marketing, branding, and things, they're all built on those things of what's your value and what you're doing. And so that's what I do, man, is I just keep asking questions until I'm sure we're ready to go forward.
There's so much value in that, because you asking questions is bringing that client help and helping them understand a process. So a lot of times I will ask my clients questions. They're like, well, why are you asking me that? You already know. I'm like, no, I want to know from a perspective so I can build up a customer journey. It'll be a lot easier for me to understand what you actually want. And I've learned that having that conversation with clients, sometimes their goal isn't what they want. And you have to say, hey, do you want sales, or do you just want awareness and to be popular? Which is fine. You just have to know, if you're spending this budget or you're doing this activity, what results that activity is giving you. And I think a lot of business owners get caught up in wanting instant sales results, but wanting to be the most popular brand month 2 of coming out. So they want to come to the market and say, this is what I've done for the market. This is what we are as a brand identity, but you haven't given your brand time to grow. I have kids, and I don't know what my kids are until they've grown fully. So you have to give your brand, a certain amount of time to grow. But you always have to implement your strategy within your brand so it's all cohesive and it doesn't just stop.
Do you mind if I put you on the spot a little bit here?
Let's do it.
I got to put you on the spot, and I think this exercise this exercise is something that everyone does badly at. I'm gonna set you up like that one. So what is the purpose of SEO?
To rank a website.
Cool. Well, why is that why is that important?
So when individuals search certain keywords, they will find your website first before your competitors.
And why would anybody want to have that happen?
Because you want to drive more customers and more sales.
Cool. And how does that actually make that happen?
The mechanics behind it?
Yeah.
Google rewards you for more keywords on your website, more links on your website, more websites linking back to your website, and more updates to your website. Things like titles, images, things like that you want to name and take care of.
Yeah, there's a little system, and that's really good, by the way, because, by the way, SEO that's the one that always confuses people. Marketers, I mean, I don't know how to always, SEO is one of the hardest ones to explain why it's doing it. But you could even just see, what was my first question is, why would you do SEO? And this framework, by the way, is called the 5 whys. I'm going to butcher the actual one, but it's taking the thing you do and you ask, well, why do we do that? Well, why is that important? Well, who would actually need that? What does that allow us to do? And by asking that 5 layers deep of why, we actually now come to the reason why you would need SEO. And then if not, it's like, well, how do we actually prove that that's going to work? Because there's other things that happen is like, well, bringing people to your website doesn't also mean it's going to bring you more customers.
That's true.
The website,
wait, so you're saying did I pass your test?
You did really good, man. You did good. But it's just to show it's that it's not actually apparently clear.
That's for me, you know.
Good job, buddy. Good job. So all that to saying, it's like, and anyone who's in business who's looking for SEO, you're going to see that even those answers you gave, well, it was pretty good. It still leaves a lot of questions about, well, why is actually SEO the actual thing we need? And you can do that with everything. Like take plumbing, take all those things. And you have to ask those extra levels, because unless you know why the thing you're doing is actually important and what are the implications and all those things, you can't really know the branding. You can't really know why you're going to market and what's going to be good to market or not. And you can't then think about what kind of a business am I going to make? What is actually important? How am I going to structure my business? All of that comes down into back to the why of what you're doing. So just asking the 5 whys, you can uncover that and I'd say 99% of business owners are going to just stumble through those 5 questions. They actually didn't know it.
Let's run through this again. What are the 5 whys?
It's just asking why.
Keep asking why.
Yeah, just keep asking why too. Now, you could look it up. Maybe I can look it up, the 5 why analysis. There's a whole thing that you could look up. But the essential, the simplified version is just ask why 5 times, and it usually takes it that much to get to the root cause. So like, for instance, as an example, if someone has a problem, like this example I just found online, it's like, the problem is that I ran through a red light. I was driving, I ran through a red light. Yeah. And it's like, well, why is that a problem? Well, I was late for work. Well, why is that a problem? Or why did that happen? And so, well, I woke up late. Well, why did you wake up late? Well, my alarm didn't work. Well, why? Because there's an exhausted battery. Why? Because I forgot to check it. That's the root of the problem, right? So why did you...
It's like my kids asking me why all the time after everything. Well, why? Maybe we'll get to the root of a lot of problems if I keep allowing them to ask why.
You have to be a child. You can't... As soon as you think you know what the answer is, that's usually my buzzer. As soon as someone tells me that they know what the answer is and they feel confident, that's usually my warning sign to go is... no, I'm not confident about most of what I know. So if you're confident, and I know a lot of people who actually don't know what they're doing, none of us really know. So when I say confidence, I want to test it, and I want to ask that level. I want to ask a lot of questions until I'm certain.
Yeah, we're gonna end on that note, because that's good information. I think that is a lot of value for individuals to be able to know and grow in what they're doing. So I appreciate that. Appreciate everything you've given us today. Do you have any questions for me before I close? Except for all the 5 whys?
Any questions? Well, the thing would be is, Joe, do you know what your value is? Do you know what you're really all about?
Yes, our value is we help podcasters grow and amplify their online presence on YouTube.
Yeah, you do that, man, and you actually I see you actually doing it, and that's I know you wanted to end it, but I think we got to go there too.
Let's go there.
Is bringing in accountability and bringing the consequences of your decisions as close to you as possible.
Yeah.
A lot of times we like to outsource things and all that. We like to solve problems that are like arm's distance away from us.
Yeah.
But what I really appreciate about you've been pivoting a lot lately, and it's like you've been pivoting to even closer because like podcasting, you know people really well, creators, you've been in that creative in the music industry and that. Yeah. So when you're solving those marketing problems that you're actually really close because you're dealing with those problems yourself. So if your systems aren't working for you, then you get that kind of feedback. And a lot of times in business, especially if you're a tradesperson or anyone who does something that's like for someone who's the opposite of you, those are those big gaps look for those big gaps because there's a communication gap that you can often miss because you're a computer tech whiz, for instance, and you're helping people who aren't computer tech whizzes. There's probably a very large gap of value that you don't realize that you need to fill. That's beyond just what you do. But so anyway, that was just a little thing that jumped to me there.
No, that's definitely some good insight, and we're trying to figure that out here at Influence Solutions, trying to get better at that. And like you said, it starts with me first. It starts with applying that to what we are doing. It starts with being accountable with what we're doing certain pods like this and talking to individuals like you to learn and get even better at what we're doing so that we can help our clients grow. And we're here to stay. Influence Solutions, we've been around since 2012, so we haven't gone anywhere. We haven't left. We are a pre-pandemic company, and we are a post-pandemic company. Yeah,
man. Yeah, it's been inspiring getting to be part of your journey, dude. I'm looking forward to many more years at it.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Well, it was great talking to you. Hopefully we can do this again, catch up more when we have some more things going and get the audience excited. And thank you for coming on A Cup of Joe with Joe.
Cool, man. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Take care, man.